I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. The Department of Justice has filed a motion for contempt against Donald Trump and his team in federal court in Washington, D.C. This motion for contempt relates to the fact that Donald Trump and his team are refusing to appoint a custodian of records who will state that all of the documents that Donald Trump had taken, that he had stolen from the government, has in fact been returned, and that no custodian of records on behalf of Donald Trump is willing to sign a statement under penalty of perjury that Donald Trump is no longer in possession of any government records or any top secret classified records. And we are learning about this from a bombshell report by the Washington Post, who has received information from sources familiar with the criminal grand jury that has been assembled in Washington, D.C. for some time, which is investigating Donald Trump's crimes relating to the theft of these thousands and thousands of government records, including top secret compartmented records and other classified records. Now, this is highly unusual because in mostly all circumstances, it is very easy to find a custodian of records on behalf of an organization who is willing to attest under penalty of perjury that the organization is complying with its legal duties and responsibilities. But not so here. And this comes at a time where it is believed that a lot of documents may still have not been turned over to the Department of Justice that Donald Trump stole. I mean, just this week, we learned that in a storage facility out in West Palm Beach, there was additional classified records that Donald Trump was still withholding that was not turned over to the Department of Justice and which was not obtained when the Department of Justice executed the search warrant on August 8th at Mar-a-Lago. Now, the consequences for being held in contempt could be a very serious daily fine, and there could be criminal contempt repercussions as well. Now, this contempt motion is pending before Judge Beryl Howell. She is the presiding judge in Washington, D.C. federal courts over all criminal grand juries that take place in Washington, D.C. And the way the Washington Post was able to report this is based on sources and by also looking at the docket. So one of the things that we can see, because all of these documents have been filed under seal, you can see that there is activity taking place in a case that is in a pre-indictment phase before a criminal grand jury, but you can't see what the specific motions are. You can't see what is being filed, although you can glean based on the fact that filings exist, that there is activity and action taking place, and essentially all grand jury proceedings are done in secrecy. They happen confidentially, unlike, say, the January 6th committee, which is an investigative body that operates those public hearings. And ultimately, if there is an indictment, or I should say, when there is an indictment, of course, the trial will be public and then everything is then made public. But pre-indictment grand jury proceedings are done in secret. Now, what you may also recall as well is that Donald Trump's on-again, off-again lawyer, someone who claims to be a lawyer when she goes on Fox and other right-wing media, but then claims to be a custodian of records. Well, Christina Bobb, you may remember her. She also moonlights as a reporter for right-wing media, those really weird right-wing media channels that follow Trump around at his rallies. And so you may have seen Christina Bobb there as well. She was there this summer and leading up to the midterms. Well, back on June 3rd, she attested that she was the custodian of records back then. I guess she's no longer wants to claim that she's the custodian of records. But here, let's pull up what she signed back on June 3rd when she was the custodian of records. And first, let me pull up the subpoena that was sent by the grand jury in Washington, D.C. This was sent on May 24th, 2022. At this time, Jack Smith had not been, of course, appointed the special counsel. So Jay Bratt, the top counterintelligence intelligence official at the Department of Justice, is the one who signed the subpoena. You see the subpoena right up here on screen. It was sent to the custodian of records, to the office of Donald J. Trump at his address in Mar-a-Lago. And it called for the documents to be turned over on May 24th. And if you want to scroll down to the box below, what it requested was any and all documents or writings in the custody or control of Donald J. Trump and are the office of Donald J. Trump, bearing classification markings, including but not limited to the following: top secret, confidential, top secret. Then it goes through all of the various designations there. So then what happened was on June 2nd, the day before June 3rd, Boris Epshteyn and Evan Corcoran, two lawyers for Donald Trump, summoned Christina Bobb to meet, and they basically told Christina Bobb that they wanted her to be the custodian of records and to attest to the FBI when they showed up at Mar-a-Lago. They asked for a brief extension. That's why the subpoena return date, you may have noticed, was dated May 24th. But then on June 3rd, the top DOJ official and top FBI counterintelligence officials showed up at Mar-a-Lago, and Trump's lawyers Epshteyn and Corcoran summoned Christina Bobb and tell her, you got to be the custodian of records, basically throwing her under the bus, if you will, but she's complicit in all of this, and that you need to attest that all of the documents have been turned over. Here's the attestation that she made. Let's pull this up. Based upon the information that has been provided to me, I am authorized to certify on behalf of the office of Donald J. Trump the following. A diligent search was conducted of the boxes that were moved from the White House to Florida. B, this search was conducted after receipt of the subpoena in order to locate any and all documents that are responsive to the subpoena. C, any and all responsive documents accompany this certification. And D, no copy, written notation, or reproduction of any kind was retained as to any responsive document. I swear or affirm that the above statements are true and correct to the best of my knowledge. And what you'll notice there is Christina Bobb tried to hedge a little by saying, based upon the information that has been provided to me, but then it begs the question, and this is a question that she's been asked. She's been actually called to speak to the FBI. Well, who is it that provided you with this false information? Because remember, one of the things the Department of Justice is investigating Donald Trump for, and he is likely the source of this inaccurate information, is obstruction of the Department of Justice's investigation. In addition to the Espionage Act and the mutilation and destruction of documents, obstruction carries with it a prison sentence of up to 20 years. And so Christina Bobb signed this. I think we have video also of Christina Bobb. So after Christina Bobb went on and did all of the Fox News hits and all the other right wing saying she was Trump's lawyer, she even appeared in court in connection with the search warrant proceedings. So the search warrant, of course, was executed at Mar-a-Lago on August 8th. Obviously, this declaration that I just read for you was false. They found thousands of records, including over 100, approximately 103 top secret sensitive compartmented records as well. And she even showed up in court in connection with some of the proceedings, I believe, before Magistrate Judge Reinhardt. But here she was at one of the rallies saying, no, there must be some confusion. I'm only the custodian of records. Nonetheless, she admits that she was the custodian of records. Here, we've got tape for everything. Play this tape of Christina Bobb saying that she was the custodian of records. Play it.
I am on President Trump's legal team. I do work for him on election issues. I was never on the legal team handling this case, just to be clear on that, which is why, I came in as the custodian of records, because I wasn't on that team.
Right.
So I just want to clarify for people that thought I was doing both. I was not. I've never have been.
Yeah. So now nobody in Trump's inner circle or outer circle, nobody wants to do what Christina Bobb did there. And not a single person in Trump's orbit wants to file a declaration saying that they've done a diligent search, or a diligent search has been done, and that all of the records have been returned to the Department of Justice. And because they're refusing to do that, the Department of Justice is saying, look, this is unprecedented. An organization always has a custodian of records, even if it's Donald Trump. In addition to contempt, compel them to make the statement that all of the records have been returned. Even if that means Donald Trump himself making the statement, someone needs to attest for the corporation or for the entity, for the office, for his team, that all of these records have been returned. And notably, everyone is refusing to do that on the Trump side. And look, Judge Beryl Howell, the federal judge overseeing these proceedings, she's not going to be very lenient on Trump with these facts that are coming before it. Now, what this also shows as well is that Jack Smith is moving very aggressively here to file this motion for contempt, to put the pressure on Donald Trump and his team for someone to be a custodian of records to step forward. And the fact that everybody is refusing to do it, to me also in terms of getting an indictment, further starts to look more and more as an admission of guilt, and the fact that there are these documents that are likely still out there. And you can see the Department of Justice moving very aggressively to try to determine where other documents may be, who's hiding it, and to create a situation where Trump is being put on the spot to finally state that all of the documents have been returned or not, under penalty of perjury. And if somebody lies under penalty of perjury, a perjury charge will indeed be pursued. So big news here. Want to give a special shout out to Washington Post for breaking this story. Check out their article that just came out as well on this topic. But the Department of Justice filing a motion for contempt against Trump in an under seal confidential proceeding before federal Judge Beryl Howell for the failure of the Trump organization, for the office of Donald Trump, for Donald Trump to put forward a custodian of records declaration. Now, this seems very similar to what Trump was doing also in New York in connection with Letitia James' special proceeding that preceded the filing of the $250 million, at least $250 million fraud lawsuit brought by the New York AG's office. Donald Trump and the organization also was playing games with who the custodian of records was. And you may recall that there was a fine of, I think, about $10,000 a day. Trump was held in contempt in New York before the lawsuit ultimately was filed by Attorney General Letitia James. And then they had to get back into compliance and have a custodian of records. But here, nobody wants to sign a declaration and put their reputation, their legal license, or their other licensures on the line here. We will get you more information as it becomes available to us here on the MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button right now. We are on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your support. Please hit the subscribe button now. And in addition to subscribing here, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Please consider becoming a patron of the MeidasTouch community. That means there's lots of exclusive content when you become a member of patreon.com/MeidasTouch. But most importantly, we are not funded by any outside investors at all. We are 100% crowdfunded, and we compete and many times exceed the viewership of the large media networks. And that's thanks to you. 100% independent. If you want to help grow it, check it out. Patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.